Ly Tu Diem here. Hello everyone. From the bottom of my heart, I wish you good health and lasting peace in your life. They say every dawn is a chance to begin again, to heal, to hope. And in each of my new beginnings, there has always been one constant CEO Toan. Why does he always help me? Maybe because he sees the parts of me I tried to hide. Or maybe because he believes that no one deserves to face the darkness alone. Every dawn is an opportunity to start over. Why does CEO Toan always help Ly Tu Diem? The rain hadn't stopped all night. The sky was still bruised with gray when Ly Tu Diem stepped out, barefoot and shivering, to gather a few fallen branches for firewood. Her hands were scraped, her clothes damp with dew, but her eyes, though tired, still held a flicker of will. She didn't know what the new day would bring, only that she had survived the last one. From a distance, Toan watched her, not as a rescuer, not as a man of power, but as someone who had once been lost too. He had seen her in moments she thought no one noticed, when she gave her last piece of bread to a stray dog, when she hid her tears behind a smile, when she quietly chose dignity over despair. People often ask him, why her? He never answered with logic because this wasn't about logic. It was about recognition. Toan saw in Diem a quiet strength the world had tried to crush. He helped her not out of guilt or obligation, but because he knew what it meant to be silenced, to walk through the fire with no one reaching back. Diem didn't ask for saving, she asked for space to breathe. And Toan, with all his influence, offered her what no one else had a chance to simply be herself. Each time she fell, he didn't carry her, he waited, hand outstretched, letting her decide when to rise. Because every dawn is a new beginning, and some souls just need to be reminded they deserve one. Toan believed in second chances not just for Diem, but for himself too. By helping her, he was healing the part of him that once felt invisible. And in that quiet exchange of grace, both of them were slowly learning what love really meant. Not possession, not promises, but presence. In the end, maybe that's why he always helped her. Because in saving her fire, he rekindled his own. Every dawn is an opportunity to start over. That morning, as the first rays of sun slipped through the trees and kissed the worn roof of the cottage, Ly Tu Diem crouched by the fire Toan had built the night before. The flames crackled softly, warm against the chill. She held a tin cup of rice porridge he had gently handed her, nothing fancy. But to her, it felt like a feast. Toan didn't speak much. He never tried to control her path. Instead, he made space beside him and waited. It was the quiet patience that shook her most. She looked at him across the small fire. "You always help me," she said softly, voice trembling, "even when I run away. Why?" He hesitated, then leaned forward, eyes steady. "Because I see you, Diem. I see the girl who never gave up, even when everyone else turned their back. You saved me in the forest, do you remember? I didn't know who I was, but your kindness brought me back." Diem lowered her gaze. "But I have nothing to give you. I'm just broken." Toan smiled gently. "No, you're not broken. You've been bent by the storm, yes, but you're still standing. That's strength." A long silence settled between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was full like the silence between two people who no longer needed to pretend. Later that day, Toan received a call. Trouble had surfaced again at the construction site, faulty materials, a possible setup by someone trying to sabotage him. He was torn. He needed to go, but he didn't want to leave Diem alone. "I'll be fine," she assured him before he could speak. "Go. Do what you need to do. I'll be here." For the first time, Toan saw a different kind of light in her eyes, not fear, Not doubt, but trust. And it filled him with quiet courage. As he left, he turned back. Every day is a chance to begin again, he said, echoing the words he once told her. She nodded, and this time, I want to try. That evening, Diem swept the little house, warmed the soup, and even found herself humming. She wasn't waiting to be rescued anymore. She was waiting for herself to rise. And far away, driving back through the dusk, Toan felt the shift too. Two hearts, once lost in darkness, now moved closer with each sunrise slowly rebuilding, one dawn at a time. The days passed slowly, like the gentle unfolding of petals after a long, bitter winter. Ly Tu Diem began to change not all at once, but in quiet, almost invisible ways. She started watering the small patch of earth behind the cottage, where wild herbs grew freely. She sewed an old torn blanket, folded Toan's shirts with care, and even lit the lamp before sunset so the darkness wouldn't feel so heavy when he came home. Toan, though buried in work and danger, always made time to come back. No matter how exhausted, how late, he would show up sometimes with medicine, sometimes with soup, but always with eyes that searched for Diem first the moment he stepped through the door. One night, after a long silence over dinner, Diem finally asked what had haunted her for so long. "Do you ever regret helping me?" She whispered ... Toan looked up, startled. "Why would I?" "Because I'm still figuring myself out. I'm not like the women around you. I don't shine in public. I don't belong in your world." Toan set down his spoon and leaned forward. "My world," he said gently. "You're the only part of my world that feels real." Diem blinked, unsure whether to smile or cry. "You taught me that strength isn't noise," he continued. "It's the quiet way you survive, even when you're hurting. The way you still make soup when your hands are shaking. The way you show up, even when no one claps." And in that moment, something in her shifted like a door she had locked, finally letting in the light. Later that week, Toan received a threat. Someone was watching him. The sabotage at the company was deeper than expected, and his name was being dragged through contracts he hadn't signed. He knew he needed to act fast, but when he told Diem, she didn't panic. She simply reached for his hand. "I'll be here when you come back. You don't have to face the dark alone anymore." For a woman who once feared shadows, it was a vow of incredible courage. So he left that morning, eyes sharper, heart steadier. Because this time, he wasn't just fighting for a company, he was fighting for a home for her. And Diem, standing in the doorway with the rising sun behind her, watched him go not with fear, but with hope. Because every dawn, they were not just surviving. They were rebuilding each other and themselves. The wind grew colder as autumn crept in, but inside the small house, warmth lingered, sometimes from the crackling fire, sometimes from the quiet smiles exchanged between Ly Tu Diem and Toan. Each day began with little routines that felt sacred. Diem would make tea with slices of fresh ginger, and Toan would sit beside her, eyes still heavy with sleep, but heart already full just from her presence. She no longer looked like someone running, she looked like someone healing. But peace never lasts long in the lives of those who have endured storms. One evening, as Toan returned from the city, his face was grave. He carried a folder with him, documents, evidence, things he had discovered about the people trying to ruin him. "They're closing in," he said softly, after Diem handed him a bowl of warm soup. "They forged my signature. They're trying to pin it all on me. If I fall, the whole company goes down." Diem listened quietly. Then, placing her hand gently on his, she said something he never expected. "Let me help." "You've helped enough," he replied quickly. "You've given me peace. That's more than I could ever ask." "No," she said, voice steady now. I don't want to just be someone you protect. I want to stand beside you." That night, Diem stayed up late reading files, scanning papers, connecting names. Her mind, once clouded by survival, was now clear, focused, and sharp. She remembered things from her past. One of the men involved with Toan's rivals was also someone who once tried to buy her when she was being forced back by her mother-in-law's family. This wasn't just about business. It was deeper, darker. Toan watched her from across the room. How far she had come. From a frightened girl with nothing to a woman who refused to let fear control her. And for the first time, he realized he didn't just want to save her, he wanted to build with her. "Tomorrow," he said, "we go together." She nodded, not afraid, not hiding. Because dawn had come again, and this time, they were ready to fight for more than just survival. They were ready to fight for justice, for truth, for love. A valuable life lesson from the story of Ly Tu Diem and CEO Toan. Sometimes, the people who walk into our lives during our darkest moments don't come to rescue us. They come to remind us that we were never truly broken, only lost. Ly Tu Diem was a symbol of quiet strength. Abused, betrayed, and cast away, she still found the courage to care, to nurture, and to believe in kindness even when the world gave her no reason to. CEO Toan, powerful yet wounded in his own way, didn't save her, he saw her. And in doing so, he gave her the space to save herself. The lesson here is simple but profound. Pain may bury us, but it never defines us. Every dawn is a chance to begin again, with new strength, deeper grace, and a heart wiser than before. Real love doesn't rescue. It walks beside you, hand in hand, until you're strong enough to stand on your own. In a world where many people are judged by their past, their scars, or their silence, this story reminds us to look deeper, to listen, to believe that even the most fragile soul carries untold strength, and that the right support can reignite a fire that was nearly gone. To the audience, may you always have the courage to start again, and the kindness to help someone else rise from their ruins. Just like Diem and Toan, we all deserve a dawn where healing becomes possible and love becomes real.